was primarily with classical education was not when I had a kindergartner, not during COVID, but when Cassidy was born. I brought her home, I was carrying her, and I thought, man, the responsibility to raise a child is insane. And I jumped from essentially public school, good education, the whole thing. But all of a sudden, I was holding Cassidy. I was reading Deuteronomy 5 and Ephesians 6, and I knew I had this responsibility. And so I kind of go off deep in things, and one of those things I jumped into was, what does it mean to, I've got this daughter. I'm responsible to shape her worldview. And in 4 years, I'm going to send her up to somebody to educate, right? I started asking, what does it mean to educate? And I don't think many people stop and always ask that question. But once I jumped in that pool, I realized the system I was getting ready to send her to in 4 years was actually not one I bought into. It was a system that honestly got me good scores, good test scores, good grades, good test scores, got me into good college, the whole American dream, right? This is what we do. This is what kind of our system's built for. And you guys can use some videos I've seen on your website. I really like some of those are really strong. But the system is built to get kids into that college, to get a job, to make money, to live an unhappy life and die in the rat race. And I thought, I don't want to send my kid to that. And I don't want to send my kid to Rome and not expect them to come back as a Roman. So I dug in pretty deep, and after about 3 months of study, I told my wife I found the answer, and you were going to homeschool. She said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And so, obviously, once I dug in a little bit deeper, started reading, started asking questions, and I found this small little school called the Classical Christian School, Providence Hall. It was about 40 kids. You all are 48. You're beating it. Congratulations. And I thought, I read a lot. I dug in. I said, this is where I'm going to send my kids. So I walked in the headmistress, and I said, my name's Tony. I have a kid, and I would like to help fundraise for your school. I said, great. How old? I said, she's 3 months. And she said, you're a little early. I said, well, I want you to be here, right? I want you to be here in the future. And so she said, well, we're doing fine. It's interesting. She said, we're doing fine because we have a benefactor. And what I found out is it doesn't take one person to run a school. It takes a village. And so I love the support you all have. It's very broad. Got to Providence Hall. I was dialed in on this thing. Again, whenever you're in a school of 48 doing classical Christian education, I know that Rachel over here knew what it was, and she bought in full folds of 4 kids moving from Chicago. But a lot of people think you all are crazy, right? Because it's different. Because the goal is fundamentally not the same. So I said, we're in on this thing, and I showed up at the first event. My wife is kind of like, okay, you've been studying this for 4 years. We're sitting around a pool, and one of the dads stands next to me and says, which one's your kid? And I said, mine's a little girl that's going to be in pre-K right there. And he goes, you have the girl. I said, no, I have a girl, not the girl. And he said, no, it's the only girl. And so I turned to my wife and said, I don't know that this is going to work anymore. So we toured every school, again, not kidding, the next week. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't a pragmatic decision. I wasn't going there because it had a good football team, it had Americana experience, it was going to protect my child. I wasn't going there because there were plenty of girls for her to be around. I was going there because it was going to matter how she was going to grow and be shaped as a child. And so we ended up going there. I love the story. You all had 2 fifth graders last year, and you have 9 this year. Congratulations. That's crazy to have your lead class. Our lead class had 1 girl the whole way, blazing the trail. God bless her. That being said, what I realized very quickly is the aim, the telos, the end goal of the school, the public education, since Horace Mann in the late 1800s took over and state educated our children, the goal is to get them involved in our capitalistic systems, get those jobs, to do the thing. Before that, the church was really involved in education. And the goal was the heart. The goal was virtue shaping. The goal was very different, to know what is true, to know what is good, to know what is beautiful. That's millennia of education we abandoned, right? That's insane. And so I thought, this is worth it to fight through. I'm not worried about pragmatism. I love sports. I love band. I love big programs. But this was more important to me. So we jumped in, and no plan B. And that's another thing I'll say, and this is going to be controversial to some of you. I apologize in advance. But a lot of friends are like, I'll try it for a year. And that's cool. It is, and I understand. But once you really understand what is going on here, this isn't, even compared to a Christian school, it's not like we take Common Core curriculum or whatever the new thing of the day is and drop a Bible class in it. It's wholly habituating your child in a full canon of text in the story. It's fully putting them around a community that cares about strange things that matter way more than the other things other folks are caring about. And this is something I've just been all in on. And then you get all in with other people next to you in a boat, and you realize, okay, you're not as crazy. And it's actually like, this is something that's worth it. It's something that's worth it to drive. We have families that have driven from Stillwater, Oklahoma to Oklahoma City for an hour and a half each way. I don't know how they do it. I mean, God bless them again. But the commitment they have to it because of what's going to manifest. And I'm going to argue it's not, what I heard here is beautiful. It's not just in your families. It's not going to be just in your community. It's got an impact that I think is going to be part of saving Christendom. I mean, honestly, the way you build out the church, the way these kids are formed has a way bigger impact than what's going to go on inside your walls. So, does anyone here know John Mark Reynolds? He's controversial sometimes. He's a professor. He was out of Biola when I was there in classical Christian education. He had to summarize it. And he goes, okay. And we'll do a 30-second elevator pitch. He goes, I'd say so your kids can die well. That's jolly, isn't it? So they can die well. And then he stopped and said, no, think about it. A lot of people don't live well. They don't know how to die well. C.S. Lewis, Abolition of Man, right? Talks about men without chests. We're growing a culture of people that don't know how to, they might know things. They might know how to use technology. They don't know if they should and when they should or how they should. They don't ask questions that seem obvious for centuries, for millennia. We've kind of become lemmings and walked off a cliff and we're following a pattern that is not necessarily good, right? And so he just said, I would love an institution that is shaping my children on how to live and die well. And like, honestly, I tell my kids that all the time. Like, why do you go to school? To die well. That's it. That's good. And that's good enough. Our goals of success are not necessarily right. To live a good life, loving Jesus Christ. I don't know your mission statement. I know ours. They're very similar in a lot of ways. We talk about shaping affections. That's one of the things we like to do, and I'm sure that the Anthem is shaping what your children love. And like, that's crazy stuff. No school saying, hey, we want to shape what your children love, and you're okay with it. Right? I don't want the things the world loves to be the things my kids love. And love is going to triumph over the mind. What do you know? No, what do you love? What are you pursuing? What do you care about? And like that drives us. If you guys have read Jamie Smith and all of that kind of literature, it's good stuff. You are what you love. So I actually really did like that, to die well. I also like the fact that part of this, and again, the panel did a great job of articulating this. I think this was Deanna here. You're here learning what to love, and you're not afraid of the outside world. You're not afraid of truth. Christian schools create a bubble. They do. They create a bubble, and they think that's good. I want to be in a bubble. Classical Christian schools do not. They let in the most dangerous ideas that have ever shaped humanity, and we're good with it because our word, our truth, our logos can deal with it, and our kids are ready. And like, to me, that's crazy. I want a kid that can deal with Freud and Nietzsche and ideas and wrestle with them. It's funny, Cassie is sitting in a class, and we went to John Brown, and it was great, wonderful school. You went there, fantastic. First time I've ever been there. Really good tour, and we're doing a lot of these. We're doing another one on the way home, and we've got a lot lined up. She's only a junior. But they were saying, how many people in this classroom read? And you really need to read. And my daughter's like, I read all the time. I guess that's in my soul, right? She was encouraged 3 or 4 times to read. And it's like our kids come out reading, and they come out reading not just Christian texts. They can talk about things, and they're going to leave Anthem, be able to talk about things. They can go to a secular university. They're fine. They'll hold their own, right? I don't want necessarily a bubble where a kid leaves and goes and finds the real world. That's a beautiful thing about this. As a board member, I'm going to give a little charge to what I think you all can do on the way out. As a board member, we go through a lot, and especially we were part of that small province hall, and we were kind of dying. And then there's another school called Veritas that's kind of dying. So -1 plus -1 equals +1, and it worked. We founded the academy, and we went from 80 kids to now we have over 850. And that's crazy. I don't know how that actually happened, because I remember sitting in this room with the core people saying, "Let's do this. Let's take this hill." Now I don't know all the people. But it's brilliant, because when I hear them talking about things, the ideas are still resonating deeply. That being said, I put charge of things that I know are coming, because it's hard to be building a school like this. That's what I was going to say. Whenever parents come to you, sorry, we finished the bubble thing, I want to do the charge. I remember last 2 years ago, we had a really hard topic, because when you're dealing with kids and faith and parents, you're going to have some good discussions, right? And we had these parents come across because we made a decision, and the board was kind of being yelled at, and I get to be the one that sits across the table and talk, hopefully with grace and truth. And they said, "We are here to be in a bubble. That's what we signed up for. You're not protecting our kids." And I said, "We've never said we're in a bubble. We're not a bubble." And classical Christian doesn't pretend to do that, but they're prepared. So, from being on the road, being in some hard discussions, this is what I'll say as a charge for you all. Starting a school is hard. You all are farther along than I think both of our schools was in founding the academy than we were at the time 2 years ago. So congratulations. Getting to dialectic, or what you guys call logic school, is hard. You all have 9 kids, and it sounds like they're going to graduate. And Lord willing, they will, right? Like, keep those 9. If you're one of the 9, stick together with your kids. That means something. It blazes the trail. It sets, like, the kids like being a part of that, actually. It's going to look easy to spin off and play basketball somewhere, or go to a cheer program. But, like, stick with it. You're actually leading a larger endeavor. And your kids will enjoy that. Starting rhetoric is expensive. It is super hard. And so that's ahead of you all. More fundraising. So be ready for it. Because that's the crafting school. When people go through grammar, through logic, and then they say, "We're not going to be here for the rhetoric," it's like, that's the thing we're doing. We're going all the way. And you all have that vision. A lot of classical Christian schools say we're going to go K through 5th, K through 8. And I love it that you all are already saying you're going K through 12. And so stick with that. When you start recruiting teachers, training teachers, Hillsdale's phenomenal. You all already have it in. That's wonderful. Stick with investing in your teachers. Don't ever give up on that. Whenever you have to fight that 4, 3, or 6% tuition, and that means paying good teachers, fight that fight. It's worth it. When you start picking up scale, you already went from 17 to 22 a year, 48. Now you're probably finished with 50, 52. I don't know how it's going to work. And then very quickly it's going to be 100. This is going to be 150. Keep the culture, maintain the vision. Don't give up. Like, it's going to be, right now it's not necessarily cool, although you all know classical Christian schools are cool. Not everyone knows that. Then it becomes the cool place to be, because you're the second highest test scores in the state, and your kids are going to phenomenal schools. But that's not what we're doing. That's just a byproduct. And if someone comes there because they think they're going to get that, but they don't understand what you're doing, you need to be really clear on that front door to maintain culture. Because what you're building is good enough, and you just stick with that. Now, those in this room, some have kids, some don't. I love it that I've talked to 3 or 4 folks that don't have kids here and are pouring into this school. That's brilliant. I love that. Find supporters. If you're a parent, get others. Pull grandparents in. Pull folks in the community in. It takes a village. That was one of the problems we had initially at Providence Hall. It was one person. When one person gets mad, what happens? It doesn't work. The brilliant thing right now about the academy is no one runs the school. Like it's truly the Lord has provided along the way in ways that are miraculous through a whole body, which is brilliant. So that being said, I'm going to close with this and let us get back on schedule. My elevator pitch would be, this is one of the most important things I think to support the church and save Christendom as we see it. We're reinstilling things the church has done for millennia. We've kind of abdicated that. I've heard a lot of you all say, I learned it from my church. Kevin said that. It's cool. We're building that back up. This is a huge part of what the church used to do. And now it's coming alongside probably many churches, I believe, because they're trans-denominational, right? And that's brilliant. So I say this is a really important thing. It's a missing piece of the church. So in closing, I'm going to use a Lord of the Rings analogy, because I think you have to do that when you're a guest speaker in a classical Christian school. So a lot of times we think our kids, if we're going to put them in this story, are going to be an elf or a wizard or, I don't know, right? There's a lot of characters, maybe a dwarf. They're definitely one of the most adventurous. But the news I'd like to give you all is your children are all hobbits. So that's it. That's where I'm going to But being a hobbit is really good because they know where they belong. They know what home is. They know what matters. They're going to learn the things in life that are important. They're going to cherish fellowship, friendship. They're going to know what to love. They're going to know good food. They're going to know how to laugh. They're going to laugh with the face of the world, and they're going to win. They're going to be homemakers, plumbers, electricians. Some might go on and get a professional degree. Some might be president. It doesn't matter, right? And they're going to go back home and they're going to build. And they're going to build. They don't have to be elves. We think of our kids as elves, but they're not. Very few are. But the cool thing, because of what they're doing in Anthem, if they get the ring, they'll know what to do. So thank you.